everyone. Let's get dangerous. Who are you talking to?
No one. Your mama. Shut up. Take your pick.
It's Jake Ciely.
He's opening our minds to new ideas. Kill him!
You just made a list.
Oh, wait, you're serious? Let me laugh even harder.
It's all in fantasy tales of the ranks.
Sure, we talk about it all the time. Really? No. Burn.
Game on, you Ducks. It is week 13. There are only 5 weeks left, and hopefully a full 5 weeks for everybody making it to the championship game. It is the Waiver Show. Heads up for everybody. I told everybody would answer this because there was a lot of problems for some reason with Apple Podcasts and then Spotify on top of it. So I'm going to take the recap show and add it to the end of this. So if you continue the listen all the way through and you missed it because Spotify never picked up the right one, other places never picked up the right one, Apple finally did it like 1 a.m. I don't know what happened. So if you missed the recap show, it'll be at the end of the Waiver Show. But once again, because in high demand after such a terrific job the first time, LaQuan Jones is back at Real Deal Fantasy. I don't know if that's true, but I'm making it true. That was in my mind.
It makes me feel good. I like that.
Better than it makes you feel about your Rams, I'm assuming.
Oh, we're starting off like that, Jake. Like, come on, bro. I had to hear it all day at work. Now I got to hear it now. Like, oh, my God.
Hey, at least they didn't lose to the Titans. How about that?
Ooh, yeah. That was a tough loss, buddy.
Texans. We are going to talk about worries and about some power-ups, as we always do. Real quick, I didn't include this. Are you worried at all about Joe Mixon after that? Because I had him as a sell high for the longest time, and I was like, but only if you get top 5 value, because that was the whole point. Like, if you're going to get top 5, sell high. And part of it was because of the schedule upcoming, plus the Week 14 bye, which, by the way, as a reminder, next week we get to do that whole 16 bye all over again. But with what just happened, that offensive line still not being able to do anything, I don't think there might be a few trade deadlines. Actually, I think one site's trade deadline is this Wednesday. I forget if it's Yahoo or which one it is. I know my sleeper, all the flex leagues are, but I don't know if I pushed that back an extra week. But anyway, point being, like, are you worried enough that if your trade deadline hasn't passed, you're thinking about seeing if you can still get top 7, 8 value for Mixon and getting away from the remaining way?
Yeah, if I could, but the only equivalent trade I would see is like if I can get a Breece Hall in return. Like I still want top
something
tier.
like that. And somebody afraid that Aaron Rodgers is going to get benched and then it's going to go out the window.
There you go. You're
Here's
right
one. But would you take Chase Brown straight up over Joe Mixon?
Honestly, yeah, because I think Chase Brown has more games ahead of him of the upper era where we can have a safe floor with him. Where Joe Mixon. This Texans O-line is falling apart, man, and you're a fan, so you're watching it very closely, so you understand, like, what guys getting in sync, getting in rhythm, and finding the groove with the offense, and then you got some really tough battles in the trenches and the D-line coming up on the schedule, so it's like, I'm right there with you, Jake. You might have to get rid of Mixon.
So obviously only if, again, you get top tier, like basically first round value. Otherwise, you got
Aaron's a target if you still got a deadline out there. He's
been quiet of late.
Yeah, quiet, and I'm not really
so.
This uptick, but we'll see.
I mean, that's also your boy. So
I'm getting real though. That's why it's Real Deal Fantasy, bro. Like I was about players on my own team. Like I was on the never ever draft Tyler Higbee. I was on don't believe in Cam Akers in the Rams jersey with a helmet with horns on it. Like it's not gonna be real. But I digress.
Well, then let's stay with worries to start things off. I was going to try and spin it positive and say, hey, let's go power-ups and then come back to the worries. But no, we'll continue with the Duck Report. And as a reminder, like I said, make sure you're following them at Real Deal Fantasy. Make sure you check them over at NFL and everywhere else. Remind everybody, because I know you got a couple different sites, including I'm not having a brain fart. The one. Say it. Say the other site. Thank you. Roto World came into my mind, and then as soon as Roto World came, which doesn't even exist technically anymore, at least the name doesn't. Like I couldn't get it out of my mind. I was like, I know it's Roto something, but but anyways, yeah. So tell everybody to find your stuff.
Yeah, definitely. You guys can find me at rotoballer.com. You can catch me on their website doing their YouTube videos over there on their channel, man. But I'm doing great things for NFL fantasy, working with Marcus Graham, Michael Florio. We got something special going on right now where, I made a silly bet if Jonnu Smith finishes as a top 5 tight end this season, I would dye my hair blonde. And here we are, week 13, Jay. Jonnu Smith is a top 5 at 5 tight end right now, and this is likely to happen if he keeps balling the way he's balling. So that's where,
I don't know. What's the gap? I'm looking right now. So he's at 5. He's 4 in front of Otten.
I'm a big Kate Otten fan.
I was gonna say that schedule for the Buccaneers. I think you might be okay. I think he might got.
Please, because I don't want to go full blonde, bro. Like I can't do the burrow.
You know what would be hilarious if he got caught by Otten because of the schedule. And then Travis Kelce sits essentially for all intents and purposes again the final game.
No, don't do that. No, we're not putting that energy in the universe, Jake. Come on, why?
That would be hilarious to me. Speaking of specials, this week, depending on when you're listening to this, hopefully this week, because I don't see why you'd be listening to the Week 13 waivers in Week 14. But if you go to FTN to check everything out there, BK VIP. It's not Burger King. It's not the old British Knight shoes. It's just Black Friday. BK VIP, and you get up to 25% off. 25 for the top tier, and then 20% off if you get the lower tier. But you get at least 20 up to 25. So the worries. Let's get back to this. I want to talk about the Giants because the Giants. I mean, this could not have gone worse in so many different ways for this team this year. Yeah. But now we at least had the argument that, like, hey, one of the best schedules, if not the best schedule, starting this past week. There's facing the Buccaneers. And then going forward, it stays cake the rest of the season for everybody involved, the run game, the pass game, everything. But it is Tommy DeVito. And it's not just Tommy DeVito now, LaQuan. It is Tyrone Tracy did not get the work he's been getting. He actually got yanked for Singletary and Eric Gray at time. Could be fumbles. Doesn't make a lot of sense if it's game script because you would say playing from behind, that's Tracy anyway, even before he took the role.
I'm getting
but then the other part,
as we iron this out, like I was so mad, bro. You have no idea.
Well, I'm sure you're also possibly as mad as Malik Neighbors, who in his press conference went basically full TO, saying it's not even 100% the quarterback. Let's talk and ask Dable what's going on, paraphrasing there. So if you have Tracy and Neighbors, I think at this point we know that it's this late in the season. It's like you can't bench him, but how worried are you that like you might be thinking other options, like to the point of maybe Malik Neighbors is a wide receiver 3 now at this point? Like how far are we going with this?
So I got 2 things. First of all, Neighbors is talking like you talk to your boss that you know is getting fired. So it's kind of like he could say whatever he wants. You know, he's good and he's there for the next 4. But I am a little bit worried on expectations. A lot of people, you know, kind of went into this draft and made the investment of getting him, hoping that he's going to be a target funnel. And that's exactly what we're hoping he could be. But my man, he didn't see his first catch until the second half of the game. Like these are the risks that we are kind of taking going into the playoffs. So like if I have these other like sophisticated options that I'm getting off the waiver wire, like a Devon Vele, you know, where he's getting some opportunities and he's getting more time on the field, then we could bank on Bo Nix balling out and extending play, getting him the ball. These are guys that I'd rather slide in as my wide receiver 3 or flex just to have some type of safe of mind of sleeping while I'm in this playoff hunt or while I'm in the playoffs. Like the schedule is cake, but Tommy DeVito is bad. The Giants as an organization are bad. This offense is bad. Like Malik Neighbors saying it wasn't DJ. Like it's the same outcome. Like it's the offense. It's the whole thing there to where you cannot trust it, to where like I'm not going to be pulling my hair out, you know, every Sunday waiting for Malik Neighbors to catch his first ball in the 4th quarter. You know, like I don't want that stress in the playoffs, man. I'm sorry, Jake. I can't.
Would you rather have a healthy Darnell Mooney or Malik Neighbors the rest of the way?
Healthy Darnell Mooney.
Oh, even if you said Neighbors, I was going to say I think at this point the fact that you hesitated as much as you did, that's what's telling about what we think about Malik Neighbors. And I don't disagree too much. I think we are doing this as we did last time, halftime on Monday Night Football, and Quentin Johnston didn't come down with his touchdown. But I think looking at the schedule for the Chargers isn't terrible either. There's some tough ones. The Chiefs probably the toughest remaining one on their schedule, but I could see an argument for Quentin Johnston. And I probably still barely take Neighbors, but the fact that he's in this conversation is all that needs to be said. So going back to Tracy, do you think there's any world where you can find yourself putting Tracy on your bench?
No, because he brings you a safe floor because based on his talent, and the volume he's seeing. I mean, Devin Singletary snagging one out of the red zone from him, that was very we can expect that from an organization that have been making bad decisions since the summer. It's like, it is what it is at this point, but you cannot.
Right. To be clear, they've been making bad decisions since the year they drafted Daniel Jones. Like let's speak.
That is true. Okay, there you go. That's where it all started if we want to go back to the source, but that is absolutely right. Like, no. And like, I would be so mad at myself if I put him on the bench when you've been relying on him, you know, on these random weeks, these bye weeks, and like he puts up decent points and like it's the playoffs. So you'd be so pissed off at yourself if you did that.
All right, well then let's talk about another worry, and I think people will see the box, and I'm not saying like, haha, you didn't watch the whole game, but like people will see the box score and be like, oh, cool, Hopkins got me a touchdown. But Hopkins' worst route percentage since the second game with the Chiefs, so bad, LaQuan, that he was actually dead last behind everybody, including Juju Smith-Schuster. And this is why I say it's a worry going forward, because not just that statistic alone, but I said it's the 2023. It's last year's Chiefs where it's essentially wide receiver by committee. And you know what that meant last year was the saying I always used to like to say when it comes to quarterbacks is buy the cake, not the icing, the cake being the quarterback. At this point, I don't know how you can start Hopkins. I don't know how you can start a single Chiefs wide receiver with confidence.
Yeah, I honestly don't think, you know, DeAndre Hopkins is a lot of people's like wide receiver 1 or 2. So you shouldn't be losing sleep of like having that, you know, frustration on Sundays. Do I put him in or put him out? Like, no, you don't put him in. Like, it's playoff time. Like, if you're sniffing playoffs, don't be making these like silly decisions on trying to trust DeAndre Hopkins, where I think we need to go back to note that he is playing injured, right? Like he has an MCL injury, right? And this involves him being crisp in his routes, being on time, and learning chemistry with a new team as well. Like all these factor in for DeAndre Hopkins. Plus, he's older in age. He's not in that prime anymore. He still flashes every now and again that, you know, Houston D-Hop or even Cardinals D-Hop the first year. Like, but it's not on a consistent basis. So I do feel like, you know, with DeAndre Hopkins managers, like, don't get cute, you know, just let it play out. If you know it's like a wide receiver by committee and Patrick Mahomes, is he back to being a QB1 now? I mean, the last couple games are looking good, but like D-Hop, he's not on that consistent, you know, rate of where I can trust him in starting lineups.
And completely agree. So Hopkins, wide receiver 4, maybe if you're desperate in 2 weeks, not this week, week 13, you probably don't need to start him. But here's an interesting one for anybody that plays best ball, probably hating life right now, who's stacked the 49ers, especially at cost for what Ayuk, Christian McCaffrey, depending on when you drafted, and Debo cost you. It might have even been difficult to it was difficult to get all 3 of them on top of stacking this team. But we're now at the point where let me put it this way to you. If I had to say 1 to 5, how big is your worry? Because this is again Monday during halftime. The reports from Brock Purdy have been all over the map. They've been as far as from, oh, he'll be fine for week 13 to, oh, they've been masking this and he might be done for the year. Like we have nothing. The reports are all over the place. But I will say this, even if he's fine for week 13, LaQuan, it's not definitive. But if they lose in Buffalo, there's a good chance their season's over. And if they lose against Chicago, if they lose the next 2, it's definitively over where, oh, what does that mean? Playoffs, 15, 16, 17. If Brock Purdy's still not 100%, probably shut down. They might shut down Christian McCaffrey. Debo Samuel doesn't look like he's 100%, might get shut down. And he's not playing good. Actually, you can make the argument that Debo Samuel is no different than DeAndre Hopkins at this point, and George Kittle's been battling injury. So, like, what 1 to 5? Like, I put right now my worry. So I do ducks, as everybody knows. My worry level for the 49ers is a 3, and I said in one game it could potentially be like infinity ducks. Like this could be, you might not have your 49ers for your playoffs.
That is catastrophic, man, just based on the draft investment that we put into these guys. But my worry is a 4 out of 5, just based on, like, you still have guys like Jawan Jennings that we picked up as a waiver wire hero. what happens
Yes.
to him? Like, how does his production look, without a Brock Purdy? And we kind of saw a taste of that last week. So I'm looking at like guys like, Jordan Mason. If CMC shut down, what does this do for his rushing production? Like, this is a high-end handcuff we still are holding on to going into these playoffs. So that's why you got to start making these moves now, Jake. That's why we got to start, preparing ourselves. And each and every week, it's not just like we get rid of a zombie on our bench, we bring in the hot commodity this week. No, I need guys that are going to show up and show out for the next 3 to 4 weeks, because this is go time now. Like, this is where like I sit up in my chair and I'm looking at my teams, the 7 and 5s and then the 5s and 6s, and I'm like, all right, we need to make this decision, and this is going to be for the next couple of weeks. Like, Jake, this is the most important week of waivers wire to me.
And unfortunately, it's not that deep. I'll give you one, and this now, granted, auction one. So, like, I had Nakua for $6 because, so that just as a relative, and not to be like, haha, I had Nakua for $6, but it's like, there's a reason I was able to build this team by auction being 1 with keepers and 2 by trades. And I'm always saying this, and I'm not saying, haha, look at my team, because for whatever reason, I can give you this team another time off air or whatever. It's ridiculous that I'm fighting for a playoff spot. Maybe I'll give it to you real quick, but I just wanted to bring this up because here's my 4 running backs: Kyron, Jacobs, Breece Hall, Christian McCaffrey. I'm considering benching Christian McCaffrey this week. Like that's the only reason I bring it up. Now, granted, I do have 4 top 10 running backs, but I'm saying Christian McCaffrey, since coming back, like, this is a super flex. All right, this is how stupid this is. I'm fighting for a playoff spot. Like, every team, I just want everybody to know I feel your pain too. Like, I feel it. Like every single week, I have their team's best performances. Like, they get up to face Jake. Like, I have a team that's already tanked. They're like 3-15 or something, and he scores 150 for his biggest score ever against me. It's absurd. And we do play double headers, but I'm 11-11 before the outcome for this week. But it's Jaden Daniels, Brock Purdy, Tua, Superflex. Those 4 running backs that I just gave you with Jordan Mason. And then at wide receiver, Malik Neighbors, Puka Nacua, Terry McLaurin, Amari Cooper, Jamar Chase, Cedric Tillman, and Hawkinson. And this damn team is 11-11. LaQuan.
How? Like, you should have just stopped at the running backs. How? Like, dude, you're deep at wide receiver too. Like, how?
That's an all-star roster. That sounds like I'm playing in a 4-team league.
I'm about to say, like, the fantasy gods must hate you, bro. Like, you're literally
100%.
You're not going to the playoffs. Like, I hope that's your expectations right now. Like, after this entire
if I make the playoffs, I should just destroy everyone. But the fact that I'm fighting for the playoffs is anyway. Let's go back to this because like nobody really cares that much about this.
I love how we get off track and try to get back on track to get back off again.
That's what podcasts are about.
I love the vibes, man. That's why I love being here.
Power ups. Well, thank you for that. Power up players. Actually have a player and then a situation. So this one is a semi-victory lap, and I'll do it. Like, look, I've missed things.
Enjoy victory.
Let's be clear. Like I said, I wouldn't start Ameer Abdullah anywhere. He got a touchdown to save his day. Like, cool, whatever. Like, he still only had 50-something yards. I'm not saying like, haha, I told you. He got the touchdown. Deservedly, he should have started, but didn't see the touchdown coming. So I've missed things. But Bucky Irving I had as an RB4 to draft. I had him in a pre-draft write-up as a sleeper running back. I had him in waivers since week 1 of the season. He was actually 4th on the very first week behind Tyler Algier. It was Samaje Perine to take the chance, and of course that was a big miss. But I mean, everybody was kind of on that same page. Notice saw the Kareem Hunt coming, and then I forget the one other he was behind, but it was somebody who's done really well as well. But so this is coming from somebody that's like Bucky Irving was going to be a threat, and Bucky Irving. Now I'm saying that to be like, haha, victory lap, tongue in cheek, but coming from somebody who thought that could happen, but still thought Rachaad White would hang around in the passing game. Like, this could be a 60-40 split in favor of Irving. Not so much so. It was actually a 50-50 split, but it was a 50-50 split, 50% Irving, 50% White / Sean Tucker, and 6 targets, 6 receptions to Bucky Irving. Full-on power up. Top 15 the rest of the way, question mark, because I think you could put Bucky Irving inside that. If we did a top 15, we won't rank him, but I think he could be in that conversation going forward, LaQuan.
11 exclamation point, cross out the question. Like, what are we doing here? Yes. I mean, like, honestly, I feel like the Bucs are starting to get into that rhythm of knowing their roles. Like, if you look at the snaps the last 5 games or whenever White came back from his injury, you're looking at, a slight difference in percentage, but you're looking at routes, you're looking at pass blocking. This is all they got Rachaad White there doing. I mean, yeah, he's running the routes, but are these going to be looks that Baker's going to give to him? Who knows? But when it comes to actually touching the ball, that's Bucky Irving's lane. When it comes to actually being efficient in between the tackles, that's Bucky Irving. So this is where the offense is going to be running through him, to where us fantasy managers, we're sitting here grinning. Like all of us that jumped on him right before the summer, we're sitting here grinning. I mean, honestly, look at how explosive he was last week. And yes, it was a layup against the Giants, who are allowing the most explosive ton of explosive runs out of nowhere. Like guys are having their best days on them at the highest rate. But it's like, this is the talent he possesses. Like, he was pissed off to get off the field just so Sean Tucker can get in it. I don't know if people were watching the game, but the camera caught it. Like, he said, "What the F?" Like, come on, man. Like, he didn't want to come out. He got him all the way down there. He's showing that he could be a workhorse running back. This is what's going to hit that push out the door, Rachaad White. Like, hey, we got a guy that can run routes. We got a guy that's improving in pass
Can
block.
do everything.
But here's the thing. Here's the most important part. He can get it done on the ground. Like, he can really bounce off of tackles. What are we going to pay you for? And we have Sean Tucker in the win that could be our brute to crash the goal line. But overall, it's going to be Bucky Irving's backfield before we know it.
Okay. So let's talk waiver. Oh, no, wait. One more power up, potentially. This one comes from a different angle in the fact that, like, sometimes it's hard, and I will include myself in this, is it's hard to shake our opinions that we already had. Like, for the longest time, like Kirk Cousins. Like, Kirk Cousins is like, we knew what Kirk Cousins was, as the mess as he was at Washington, like up and down, and would ignore the easy throw to throw it into triple coverage. And then he started playing better, and obviously even before the Falcons with the Vikings, we were like, wow, like, okay, Kirk Cousins deserves respect. But it was just kind of like, we didn't want to do it, because we knew Kirk Cousins, and it was kind of like hard to shake that. I'm saying that to say is, like, Bo Nix was not thought of very highly into this draft, even by people who were fans of Bo Nix. I was not a Bo Nix fan. One of the things I said, though, if anybody was going to get a lot out of him, was Sean Payton, but I admittedly still did not believe it. I'm saying that. Like, I admittedly say, like, good fit, but I still don't believe in Bo Nix. And it's come to this point now at the season where Bo Nix is playing top 10, at least for fantasy purposes. You watch him, he's arguably playing as in a contender now with Jaden Daniels for Rookie of the Year. And by the beneficiary of that, Cortland Sutton now has 6 straight double-digit scores. I'll phrase this differently, but with the same outcome. 1 to 5, your confidence level, and I'll give you 2 easy ones. Bo Nix just being a QB1, he just has to be top 12 the rest of the season. 1 to 5 confidence there, and then 1 to 5 confidence that Cortland Sutton stays top 20 for the rest of the season.
Top 20. That's doable. I'm confident in that, so I'll give that a 4. But Bo Nix, I'll give it a 3. And here's why. And I think, we put a lot of expectations on these rookies. It's good that he was unthought of, coming into this, because the expectations were low. So people were able to get him in super flexes off the waiver, whatever the case may be. But how long does this, go on? Like, these games are starting to get a little bit, shakier and a little bit, more competitive. And I think, he's definitely going to stay in that race of Rookie of the Year. But, like, for fantasy purposes, eventually the other shoe has to fall, like he's not turning the ball over. Like, there's no way these Broncos stay this perfect going into these games for the next couple of weeks, because there's a lot of tape on Bo Nix, you know what I mean? And I think the Raiders, they kind of showed, like, some areas of where he was struggling at, like the intermediate passes and coming out of the pocket sometimes, trying to hit something, missing some of those windows. So I think the things that are going to start adjusting towards Bo Nix, and, Jaden Daniels, he had his high, fell down. Caleb Williams, he had his high, came back down. But Caleb's peeking back a little bit out, Last week was good, but, like, the other shoe has to drop for Bo Nix, you know what I mean? Teams are starting to figure him out.
Yeah, I go back to the Ravens, which were a good matchup, and he couldn't get anything going right in that game. And he bounced back decent-ish against the Chiefs. 2 touchdowns. They lost 16-14 in that game. But, yeah, Atlanta was an easy one. But you're right. The Raiders' box score looks good. But
Yeah.
there were still. I actually think you bringing up Caleb Williams is a good one. Is that the two of them, like both of them, you might look at the box score and be like, man, they both had another good week. But you watch the game and you're like, there's still a few spots where it's like you kind of get it. And my concern is actually what you said, and I had to echo it. I hadn't said it yet, but I will echo it now. Is that where Caleb Williams and even Jaden Daniels, and like they hit those peaks and then they had that downturn, like basically Jordan Love last year, and then Jordan Love rebound. Yeah. You see Daniels rebounding now that he's healthy. Caleb Williams is starting to come around. Also, that includes a coaching change, we know. But it feels like Bo Nix hasn't hit his downturn yet, where like defensive side are starting to say like heading up into this point, playing the Broncos has been like, we'll stop the wide receivers to a degree, but this run game can't get anything going, so we will force Bo Nix to be the one. We'll just stop the run game because it doesn't need much to stop it, and then we'll see what Bo Nix can do to beat us. And what if defenses start saying, you know what? Well, now the answer is we need to make Bo Nix the one that we need to stop, and that's that adjustment that I'm concerning. Cleveland this week is going to be a big tell. Like I will say this, if he comes out and looks good against Cleveland again, if he throws 280, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions, very few mistakes, I'm like, you know what? I'm 100% in. Right now, I'd say I'm probably 70% in.
That's where my 3 becomes a 4.5. If he does that against the Browns, because again, you look at their box score and their defense and all the big plays they allow, but they're still a really tough defense. They're still a defense that get after the ball. They're still getting key pressures. So therefore, these are where things that O-line is going to be tested, even though they've kept Bo clean for the most part this season. So it's like, all right, well, this will be the true test. If he comes out with 2 touchdowns, like you said, 61 rushing yards and like 250 passing, like, dude, that is an amazing fantasy outing to where like, all right, Bo Nix is him.
Yeah. I think the rushing has always been one of the sneaky things, and that's why I was like, hey, he could rush for 300-400 yards. Doing even a little bit more than that as of recent. All right, couple waivers before we get out of here and get back to Monday Night Football and let LaQuan enjoy the rest of his night here. Running backs, look, outside the top 2, I'm going to talk about, like, there's a whole list here of Warren, Algier, Spears, Charbonnet, down the list, the Justice Hills, the Gus Bus, although that one will be, as we're recording this, J.K. Dobbins actually headed to the locker room before halftime. We have to watch to see what that was. Maybe it was just a poop break because we don't have any word on what that was as of right now. The biggest backup, like there's a lot here, but I just want to point this out. The biggest backup that's like screaming what the hell is going on is that Algier, 50-ish%. Jalen Wright's in the 40% range. Even Trey Benson, as you and I talked about last time, is now in that 40% range. Kenneth Gainwell's still 2%. What are we doing? Like, I know Saquon Barkley is MVP right now in the MVP conversation, fantasy-wise, not real-life-wise. The running back's not winning it. But anyway, what are we doing that Kenneth Gainwell's not on the rosters? Anyway, Jeremy McNichols. We might actually just need him because Brian Robinson hurt again, ankle. I would 95% guarantee we don't see Austin Eckler with a concussion again in this week. I'm saying at least another week. So we might be talking McNichols and they bring back Chris Rodriguez, who they just cut on Saturday.
Wow.
What's your level of interest in McNichols? Because it's probably a 1-week play because they have the bye in week 14, which is why I actually don't think Brian Robinson plays either because you get that extra week. But we know it's a 1-week fill-in. We know you need to make the playoffs, but we do have 13. We have all teams playing in week 13. So what's your level of interest in Jeremy McNichols? Is he even worth picking up for you? Or would you rather let somebody else do it and then, hey, there's the potential that Chris Rodriguez ends up being the better player anyway?
Let me spit it back at you. Like, who am I dropping? Because, like, if I have a Tajay Spears and Jaylen Warren, let's say those are the candidates to drop.
Would you drop Spears? No?
I don't know.
Would you drop Tank Bigsby?
No.
Okay. Would you drop your boy Trey Benson?
No, absolutely not. That's a high-end handcuff. I feel like no.
Would you drop Jerome Ford?
I would drop Jerome Ford.
Okay, I think that's the range. Roshan Johnson?
Yeah.
Fell back completely.
See, look, we just met right there. That is literally the tier where it's like Roshan,
Jonathan Brooks?
Yeah. Look, man, I cut that line last week because I already know. There's no way Chuba's playing too good. Like, that's a whole nother thing we go into. Like, I just feel like, for Jeremy McNichols, if I'm stacking the wins and I'm desperate, I can't look at my Tajay Spears and Jaylen Warren tier and be like, yeah. Like, you got to
if something happens. You got to get the W.
Yeah. And it's
all right. Well, then let me ask you this. This is obviously an only if scenario because if Zamir White or Madison comes back, there's nothing here. Like this is the Raiders are just the Broncos backfield, also with even worse offense. But the one situation we might have is a repeat of last week where let's just say there is no Zamir. This is a very, very, very only if scenario, but there is no Alexander Madison. There's no Zamir White, so it's now just Abdullah and not even Labe. It was Sincere McCormick, which I actually had in my rankings, but I still had Labe in front of him. But it's Ameer Abdullah. But if you had the choice of only one for 1 week only to get you your W, is it Jerry McNichols or is it Ameer Abdullah, and why is it McNichols?
I was about to say McNichols, yes, because he will get max shares. I mean, it's one of those things you hope that he has that type of game that he had earlier in the season where it was that spurst of like fantasy points. So you're hoping that that's the game plan to keep him involved. Don't have him as a running back placement there to get like 10 to 15 touches. Like, don't do that. And then you feed Jaden Daniels the rest. Like, I don't want to hear that or see that. So like, if I'm going to make this 1 week rental, I'm praying that they use him as the RB1 as if they would use Eckler, you know?
Yeah, and also Kansas City's run defense is legitimately one of the best, if not the best. And it also happens to be on my birthday on Friday, LaQuan. So, of course, Ameer Abdullah is going to get 3 rushing touchdowns just to screw me over and be like, yeah.
Dog, I'm December 14th. I'm a Sagittarius too, bro.
There you go. Actually, my original, I was super early. I was supposed to be December 10th. And I said, I'm done waiting. I'm getting the hell out of here.
I'm here now.
Yeah, let's do this now. Let's get started early. All right. Let's talk wide receivers. Early happy birthday to LaQuan. Make sure everybody tells him that happy birthday on this actual birthday.
Yeah, please.
Wide receivers. Christian Watson was near the top last week. He's near the top again this week, but more so bounce back. Great opportunity for the matchup this week. If anybody hasn't looked at week 13 already, Green Bay against Miami, and Miami in a situation where they haven't been stopping a ton, but also because no Romeo Doubs in concussion protocol. He had a head injury, which we all assume that usually what it means, but actually was confirmed, and it's a short week. He's not playing. So Christian Watson, you got one person out of the equation, which feels really good because we get less of a headache and a great bounce back spot. But Dontavian Wicks could also come into the mix. Just wanted to throw his name out because after that, this is the toss-up I was going to give you. Keon Coleman, before the Amari Cooper and at the beginning of the Amari Cooper trade, was starting to finally ball out. This is another one similar to the Bears, but a different style because we're talking wide receiver. But you and I didn't talk back then, but I talked with Chris Meany at the time, and I said that Keon Coleman at the time, before that happened, was being misused. He doesn't force corners to turn and doesn't go deep fast, so he doesn't have, like, and nobody's Xavier worthy, but you get my point. Like, not even Deshaun Jackson. Like, he doesn't have that. But he also doesn't have the best routes. So I said, you got to use him like Michael Thomas when he was with the Saints. Like, that's the role he needs to be in. And they actually started to switch and use him kind of in that facet. But Amari Cooper's been integrated more and more, has the bye, should be 100%. So if both of those wide receivers are sitting out there on waivers, do you pick up Christian Watson with knowing that Dobbs could be back and make this a headache again? Or do you pick up Coleman and say, like, you know what? There's a world like where maybe Cooper never becomes a thing and Coleman is the one.
I'll probably pick up Watson because you have the higher ceiling and you have now more volume going to him. Because honestly, these last couple of games, Watson has been the wide receiver one essentially. More yards, a higher target share. Even though Jaden Reed has been, more of the fantasy side of more explosive, but you just have to take that high ceiling now. I mean, Watson, I was on the train of beating him down, the hype trains of don't draft him because of this exact reason of just like, he gets you all high and like he makes you all feel all good with the fantasy points and then he snatches it away like the soul snatcher he is. Like, you can't trust guys like that. But if it comes down to this situation, like Coleman to me is a mystery. He's still a rookie. It's the time away. Like, rookies develop getting the repetition every single week and him getting hot and then now him getting cold. Like, I'd rather not take that risk where we know Watson has been making the big plays downfield. He's been getting the volume. And now Romeo Doubs out of the equation. It's kind of like a no-brainer right here.
Okay. Then let's go further down wide receivers as we get you out of here on this. So I have Jerry Jeudy in the waivers, but this one comes with a caveat. We actually had Zach Jackson, who covers the Browns for The Athletic, saying that DTR's time is coming. Big downfall. Like, Judy was finally fun. Finally.
What?
And then we might get DTR at some point heading for the next season. Maybe it's this week, maybe it's next week, but forewarned, it is supposedly coming. But after him, it's Xavier Legette. And here's another one. I've had Legette in the waivers since week 1, and he's moved up the waivers throughout the season. But I wanted to toss this one out to you in a different way and say that Legette's in front of two names, Marquez Valdes-Scantling and then Westbrook-Ikhine, which is essentially Valdes-Scantling, who just keeps happening. Like, this kind of goes to the Bo Nix thing. At some point, we have to acknowledge it. At some point, like everybody's like, oh, this can't continue. But it continues. Like, it hasn't stopped.
It's just identity. Like, that's what I think, like, guys need to understand and just realize, like, after a while, it's like, all right, it has to fall. But no, maybe this is their identity. Maybe this is who they are. And, like, he fits that role for that offense with Will Levis having such the big arm and wanting to play YOLO ball a lot, like being aggressive to pull downfield. And this is why he's been picked off of waivers these last couple of weeks, because some people are following the trends. Like, there's no way he could do it. And then he freaking does it the next week. No way he could do it. And then he freaking does it the next week. Like, dude, this might be his identity. So I'm picking him up over MVS. Like,
are you over MVS, over Alec Pierce too? Because I was going to say they're all in the same bucket.
Yeah, like over Alec Pierce, just based on, you know.
What about over Legette? Because that was the question I was going to go to. Because let's be clear here. I think everybody understands MVS, Alec Pierce, and Westbrook-Ikhine. The reason they're in the same conversation is because you're as likely as you are to get 16 as you are 2. Now, Westbrook-Ikhine has been doing it more frequently than the 2s, but it also always could happen. With Legette, you don't get the 20s that they sometimes put up, but you also have more recently been getting like 8 to 12, 9, 10 and change, something like that. So, like, would you rather get Legette and, you know, say, like, you know what, I can plug him in as my wide receiver 3 or 4 and I don't have to worry about that? Or is the argument, because he's my wide receiver 4, I'd just rather go for the person who might get 20?
I'm going to go for the person that might get 20, and this is why. Just on the simple example of Legette, like, you're going off the hope that Bryce Young keeps playing and keeps, you know, showing progress and, you know, his development. You're hoping that, you know, a Jalen Coker could come back, and you're hoping that maybe David Moore role has been, you know, stamped like we got something here. But then these matchups don't tend to get easy. Like, I love that they played the Chiefs hard, but this isn't like a team that has identity of where Legette is the wide receiver 1 at times. There's times where he's looking downfield and he's not even looking his way. There's Adam Thielen back into the fold as well, to where, like, this is another mouth that has to get fed, you know? And, like, we're in the stages of Bryce Young not really showing or identifying his wide receiver 1. He's going to whoever is open. He's going to whoever on that game strip is supposed to be at that spot, you know? And Chuba Hubbard, he's showing up in the run game, so he has something to fall back on. Like, these are all variables that come into that thinking and process of, like, this or that.
Okay, I wasn't this or that. This or that. Can you just put that song in my head? Would you, because you spoke so positively of him, would you go Keon Coleman or Westbrook-Ikhine? You hesitate.
I'm gonna go back to no. I hesitated because there is that hope that he can remains hot, but that's not a factual truth. I'm not gonna put my eggs in one basket for Keon Coleman. So give me the Keon, then go with what I know.
And here's the Westbrook-Ikhine thing. I don't know if a lot of people have noticed this, but the only schedule that matches the Giants is the Titans. Are you ready for the rest of their schedule? Commanders, Jaguars, Bengals, Colts, Jaguars. You can honestly argue it's even better.
It's even better, and this sounds like a Will Levis tweet as well. I mean, what, 17?
Oh, no. I had the Will Levis tweets in the preseason saying, oh, maybe Brian Callahan can fix him. To be clear, I've never been a Will Levis guy, but I was like, this was similar to the Bo Nix thing. It's like, maybe Callahan, because of what happened with Jake Browning, like, maybe he's got that magic and he get the best out of Will Levis. Will Levis is unmagicable. Like, it just doesn't, like, I just made that up as a new word, by the way. Unmagicable, it's not a thing.
I like that word, like unmatchable. Like, he'll get hot, but then while he's high, he's looking around like showboat, like, yeah, guys, look at me. And that's when he falls at the finish line. Like, that's who he is, man. That's his identity. That's what you kind of take it as. But then you have the upside of him rolling out of the pocket and extending the plays. You have Calvin Ridley, explosive. Like, you have to hit for those high ceilings with Westbrook-Ikhine as well. Like, Will Levis is going to score points if this is the identity of the Titans offense.
That schedule is glorious. All right, last one before we get out of here. I listed, now that it's late in the season, I kind of included a different group. Like, I have next man up at running back, and now this late in the season, I kind of did like a next man up of sorts. Like, it's the wide receiver 3s and 4s that, like, if something were to happen in front of them, like, oh, maybe something could be there. The game's being played right now. I have Rashad Bateman in there in a certain right. Like, I'll move it around depending on what happens with the game. But the other ones I wanted to ask you about, like, who would be the one that you would pick up? Because I listed Jalen Naylor, Joshua Palmer, Mechie, Ricky Pearsall, Greg Dortch, Tolbert, Malik Washington to go all the way down. Like, these are names that are like, you understand, like, if one wide receiver in front of them gets hurt, they step into a full-time role with potential more value. Is there a name in that list? Because I think, to me, it's the first one I mentioned, because the touchdowns were insane when Naylor stepped in for no Jordan Addison, but maybe you have a different one.
It'll probably be Naylor. I'm interested in Greg Dortch. You know, God forbid, if anything, knock on wood, anything happens to Marvin Harrison. Who's to say the quick adjustment for Kyler go back to the slot with Greg Dortch? So those two are the
I don't want that to happen, because I said all preseason, you know this, because we even tweeted about it. It's like, everybody was like, Greg Dortch, Michael Wilson, Greg Dortch, Michael Wilson. Like, the answer is neither, because neither's going to be, and I was right. It's neither. I don't want it to happen for this reason, because if Michael Wilson's out of the equation and Dortch happens to do something 15, 16, and 17, everybody's going to be like, told you. Like, no, you didn't tell me jack crap.
It ain't going to be everybody. It's going to be me, because I am the conductor.
You cannot victory lap 3 weeks of the season.
Yes, I can, and I will.
I drafted him to drop him and never play him until weeks 15, 16, 17.
Can you imagine?
Oh,
man. But Jalen Naylor, I think that you put it in order. Like, you asked the question in order of priority of who I would actually pick.
That's what you would go for.
Yeah, that's why I would go for it, because, again, you have this offense right now that's looking beautiful, man. I mean, honestly, Jordan Addison, he's showing up as the deep threat. You know, he's getting more involved. Like, remember early in the season, like, his dad or somebody was complaining about him, like, not being utilized right, and then he had that weird thing happen in LAX. Like, I don't know. People forget about Jordan Addison speeding into our lives with unwarranted information. But back to the subject. I mean, I just feel like you would have to take the highest potential, you know, with Sam Darnold being able to, like, support multiple wide receivers. It sounds crazy. Like, this deep in the season, Sam Darnold hasn't completely crashed out, you know, and, like, we have an offense that can score points.
No, you're right about that. Update as we're doing this and we get out of here. I don't think we've had any J.K. Dobbins, because I see rushes to Gus Edwards and Hassan Haskins. Ooh. So hopefully we get, Gus Edwards might be moving up to the top of this list. And this is why we said at the top, this is why. Make sure at this point, there is no reason to have these fringies. Oh, well, he might get me 6 points. Like, no, stop. Like, Demario Douglas. I'm not doing Demario Douglas. I never want 9 points. Maybe he finally gets you 15 one week. I'm not doing it. You know why? Because you'd be in a much better position. You're going to be victory lapping and being super excited when you have Trey Benson or James Conner goes down, Gus Edwards with J.K. Dobbins' potential situation. All these running backs, this is why you need to be stashing them. But also you need to be listening and following Real Deal Fantasy, LaQuan Jones. Make sure you check him on the NFL Network. And at Roto-Baller, we didn't get the brain fart of the Roto world there, and everything else. And appreciate. We got to do it one more time before the end of the season, LaQuan, and then we'll wrap things up.
You got my number. You have my DM, but you can get my number paused. Like, I'm not hitting on or anything like that. But more so,
hey, LaQuan, baby, I got your number. Don't you worry, LaQuan.
Copyright. There has to be some copyright to that.
It's sung so terribly, they'll never come for me.
Yeah. There you go. They won't be looking for them bags then. Cool.
We will be back for the rank show. If you're still listening and you missed the wraparound show, stay tuned for that after the outro, and that'll be tagged on by myself. And we'll talk to you on Wednesday. And thanks again, LaQuan.
Absolutely, man.